concept. But this is going to be a short and pithy webcast because I kind of wanted to try something out. So first off, JJ and I don't know if they can do this. If you're a third party, well, put your title in there. That would be good. Just let me see the titles. If you're a recruiter, manager, HR leader, just put something that would recognize you. I just want to see the audience here. That way I can kind of get a sense of how I want to handle this proof of concept. So we got full cycle recruiter, we got, when I say manager, if you're a recruiting manager, put that, or a electronics manager, or warehouse manager, just only that way I can tell if I've got hiring managers here, mostly recruiters. So mostly, it looks like mostly recruiters, which doesn't surprise me, but here's the idea. So this is, I'll assume that 80 to 90% of the group here is recruiters. Let me kind of just go back to first give you a quick introduction to performance-based hiring. Then I'm going to dig into what I want to call the proof of concept, the old way versus the new way, and how to test it out. So my background is I've been a recruiter for many, many, many years. I actually did work for a living, let's say this, in corporate, being a line manager and being an engineer and running a manufacturing company. And the only reason I actually became a recruiter, I was actually running a pretty significant sized manufacturing organization. But I just realized recruiters had a better life than I did, and I was going 80 hours a week and didn't see my family, so I thought that would be a good decision. It turned out to be a good decision. But because I had this manufacturing background, when I first became a recruiter, I realized recruiting is nothing different than a business process. And after 2 or 3 years, I had a search firm that was doing pretty well. We realized there was a commonality between people who were our best placements and those who were we struggled to make a placement. We came up with the 4 things that we clearly saw were different in the best placements. That eventually became performance-based hiring, and the topic I write about, just about every post or blog you'll see, is just some different way of looking at each of those issues. But first off, it's a business process, and there's steps that have to go on, and they have to constantly go on, and they have to have metrics go on. But at the core step, and this is what we're going to do for the proof of concept, is good people are not interested in taking lateral transfers. They're interested in career-enhancing jobs. So if you're posting jobs that say must have with a lot of skills on them, you're really just offering lateral transfers, and you're not going to attract many top performers. So I want to kind of just ask you a question now, and this will be another, we'll put in the questions panel. Think about the jobs you tend to fill most often. Are you in a, and don't put this in yet, are you in a surplus situation where you have plenty of good candidates to choose from, or are you in a scarcity situation where you have to reach out and try to get them in? So are you in surplus where you got plenty of good people, or are you in a scarcity situation where it's hard to find good people? So just put the word scarcity or surplus there. It gives me a sense here. And I was with the CEO this morning, and he said sales, he had plenty of salespeople, but he had no engineers, which I'm up in Silicon Valley, so it makes, well, it doesn't make total sense. So most of us are in scarcity. So if you're in a scarcity situation, you really have to offer a compelling career move, and that's what I want to do in this, this proof of concept today. However, finding people requires not just a posting boring job and hopefully some people fall through the cracks, but it's actually reaching out and going after people. I call it talent-centric sourcing, but understanding how good people in a scarce situation make decisions and modify your processes against that. The third step is, and we all have this, and I was with the CEO, I said this morning, he was sure he was a great interviewer. Oh, I'm a great interviewer. And I said, well, how do you do it? And he wasn't, I mean, and I said, what's your track record? He said, oh, I get about 60% right. Well, but he's a great interviewer, he gets 60% right. Neither here nor there. Most managers feel they're good interviewers. So you have to, in a good business process, the way you measure whatever system you measure, you have to have a good assessment tool. So we created in our performance-based hiring the 2-question performance-based interview. And I think some of you read the post on that. So the first step is you have to have a great job. The second step is you have to have great messaging that gets people attracted, or you got to have great voicemails or great emails. You just got to pull the people in. Then you have to have an assessment process, but then you also have to close the deal. And most often you never have enough money in the budget. I mean, I'm out here in Silicon Valley. For every engineering position or every high demand position, the problem is got 2 or 3 opportunities for a person. Well, you can't just keep on paying people more. You certainly have to be competitive, but you have to have the best job. And recruiters have to make the case that what you have to offer is far better than anybody else's. So that's what I call performance-based hiring. It's a business process for hiring top talent. It requires the close collaboration between the recruiter and the hiring manager. It requires an understanding of job needs. We have a couple of, and this is where the proof comes in. In our performance profile, I'm going to contend do not use skills and experience as the criteria. Instead, define success as the top quartile, B+ or better. Let's make that the objective. And that's what we're going to do, and I'm going to kind of show you that. The other part of the process, we're not going to go today, that's our whole training programs around that, is you're only going to see 4 candidates from me. If you know what I'm looking for, and I know what I'm looking for, and we have good assessment tools, if you're seeing more than 3 or 4 people, something's wrong. Either the compensation's wrong, so we can't interview, the market's not what we think it is, our advertising isn't what we think it is. Regardless, I have another meeting with another CEO at lunch tomorrow where I'm having that problem. I do a little bit of search still, and we're having a problem taking more people, and he keeps on changing the rules. So we obviously got to intervene and see if we can get back to a business process. Nonetheless, this is the business process. Performance-based hiring, great jobs, great sourcing, strong assessment skills, good recruiters who can close. So that's where I want to kind of set the stage here. So now I want to get into the proof of concept is when you take the assignment. So I'm going to dig into the performance profile. I alternatively call that a performance-based job description. And feel free to ask questions. I don't have a lot of time to answer questions, but I will answer one. We are going to provide a handout at the end, give you a link to where it's going to be, give you a link to the survey if you take this, so you'll have a chance to participate in the survey. And this is, and even actually, this is the introduction to the proof of concept. So let me kind of go through what this is going to look like. And this is extracted from our hiring manager and our recruiter training program. Basically make the case that a typical, in fact, you guys, let's do a little bit of a little interactivity here. I make the case, and I've been making the case for 30 years now, is that a skills-based job description does not predict on-the-job performance. And you can agree with me or not disagree. You can have all the skills in the world, all the experience, and still be an abject failure. In addition, we've all met great people who can do the work who don't have that exact mix of skills. Is that a true statement or not? Is that having the skills doesn't predict performance, and there's a lot of great people who can do the work who don't have the skills. They have a different mix of skills. They might not have the MBA from here. They might have the engineering degree from here. They might have done it this way. And I'm going to contend using a skills-based job description is restrictive. Restricts us on diversity candidates, restricts us on people who have comparable ability but don't have the exact mix, so we exclude a lot of good people that way. More important, or equally as important, there's not one great person in a scarcity situation who's looking for a lateral transfer. So what I do is I change the definition of the job. I say, let's not look, and I'm actually going to contend that job description is a person description. Skills, experience, academics, industry, competencies, that's a person. Other than responsibilities, that's the job, but everything else is about the person. So I've changed the rules. And when I started as a recruiter many years ago, because my background was in manufacturing, I had good costing, I had financial budgeting and planning, and I had engineering, I never even thought about using a job description. I just said, let's take a walk through the factory and see what you need. And let's see what you're building. Let's figure out what the person needs to do. So what I always did, at least up front, is define the actual work, not define the person doing the work. So when the manager says to me, it says, this is what I'm looking for, and they define a person, I said, no, let's put the person in the parking lot. Let's define the work first. What do I mean? Yeah, what does a person need to do to be successful? What does a person need to do to be in the top quartile of his or her peer group? What does your best sales reps do? What do your best call center people do? What's your best manufacturing engineer? What does your best cost accountant do differently than everybody else? Once you start benchmarking performance against the top group, the job description changes. It isn't a bunch of skills. It's work that the person needs to do and includes an action verb. Grow sales by 10%. Launch a new product. In the blog post I did the other day, where some of you read this, I said, let's create SMART objectives, S-M-A-R-T-E, SMART objectives. Specific, measurable, action-oriented, results-defined, time-bound, and the environment described. Now, obviously, I just have short versions of that, but the key is you have to have an action verb. They do stuff. They do things. It's not about a person must have. It's about what a person must achieve and must do. And I've asked, literally, when I started out as a recruiter, this was my business development concept. I would literally, these wasn't these exact two circles, I would go out to meet clients all over around the country and said, hey, let's define the work you want done. And then I said, who would you rather hire? Someone who can do the work or someone who has the skills? And 99% of hiring managers and CEOs and presidents, because I literally did it, 4 of us did it, 400, 500 different programs to 10 or 15 or 20 or 50 people. We did this for 10 years. It was amazing how much business we got. But everybody, every single hiring manager wanted to define the work. Until you walked away, then they went back to skills. But the logic of it is the work determines the skills you need. The skills don't determine if the person's going to be successful. The primary objective is let's define the work. The variable that depends, okay, the person obviously has to have enough skills to do the work. But I don't know if it's 10 years or 5 years or 3 years. That's a function of how good the person is. A good person might be able to do that work in 3 years, with 3 years experience. An average person might take 7 years to do it. So I thought, hiring man, who'd you rather hire? A high performer who's got less skills, right? And seems a little bit illogical, but it's very logical. The big issue is it's the difference maker. It's what people do with what they have that makes them successful, not what they have. So I have hiring managers define the doing. And I make the contention is if they can do that work, and I'll prove they can do that work, they obviously have enough of the skills. So what we want to do for the proof of concept is to, and I'm going to obviously give you more details on this and some more explanation on it, is to have a hiring manager. So the recruiter has to work with a hiring manager. If you have hiring managers here, work with a recruiter, define both. Okay, here's my skills, and here's the work that needs to be done. And you say to the hiring manager, I will show you 2 or 3 people who have the skills. I'll show you 2 or 3 people who can do the work. And you decide which are the better people. Now, when I actually did that as a recruiter, because some managers are just so reluctant to, let me just say, a third of the managers instantly, once you define the actual work, a performance-based job description, they say, great, they go with it. I mean, it's pretty simple. It's so logical. But there's another 30 to 50% who are so reluctant to give up on the skills. So I said, okay, let's just do it this way. I'll show you a couple of people who can do both, and you make the decision. And all of a sudden, they say, oh, yeah, okay, I'll do that. And once they see both people, or both groups of people, it's pretty clear, oh, obviously, if I define performance up front, I've got it. So that's the essence of the proof of concept. Let me show one other slide. I'm going to open it up to some questions, and then we'll kind of get into the proof. So I want to give you an example of one that's a bit artificial, but one I found on LinkedIn. I found a job posting on LinkedIn. This is a 150 to 180K telecommunications systems engineering job. Big job, but when you look at it, I don't know what the job is. I mean, you can't even tell what this job is. The person has to have strong organization and time management, customer-focused, excellent oral written skills, outstanding presentation. Now here it says ability to interface with C-level officers, ability to multitask, providing feedback to engineers, BS or equivalent, 3 years industry experience. I mean, literally, when you look at this job description, other than that C-level officer, it's exactly the same as a teller at Wells Fargo. No difference. And the can-do attitude. 90% of jobs have that. We want a lazy, good-for-nothing person who can't communicate, is so unorganized, never gets stuff done on time. I mean, it's so, why would you even put that in the job description? When I talked to the hiring manager and said, what does this person really need to do? Let's just talk, what are the top 4 or 5 big SMART objectives or performance objectives? What are they? Here's what they came up with. First, the having is on the left, the doing is on the right. Collaborate with sales reps to develop customer solutions at C-level, with C-level officers in Fortune 500 companies. The company is building or selling large-scale telecommunications infrastructure projects, both hardware, software, and customized software that integrates with a lot of databases. Well, this is the technical person liaison with the sales team that goes out to these customers. The person's got to be an expert at least understanding the application of the product and communicating it with customers, lay people, non-technical people as well as technical people, and they're doing all the technical component of these presentations, and they're $5 million to $50 million projects, so not insignificant. Big job. They have to deal, and they're the ones making this intense product description with very sophisticated buyers. It says here, ability to interface with C-level officers. Well, that's what they have to do with that. So I just asked them, I said, what do they do? What do you mean they have to interface and make outstanding presentation? Where are they making these presentations? And I don't know what, unless I ask the manager, what does this look like on the job, I don't have a heck of a lot. But now I know, okay, they're making presentations. So now if I'm looking for a candidate, they've got to have made complex presentations to sophisticated buyer groups. I've got it. They also now have to go back and interpersonally have to communicate with the engineering team back on site because they've got they're modifying products real time to customer needs, and they've got to be able to communicate that to the engineering group who's actually building and developing the product, so operations and engineering and manufacturing. They also have to work with finance and accounting and contracts group because this person is kind of negotiating the whole process, at least at the detailed cost level. Has to understand, hey, if you have a tech change, you're going to do this. If you add this component to it, you're going to do this. So this person's got to be pretty strong with the financial budgeting and interfacing with contracts. I said, well, what do you say multitasking? What does that mean? Oh, well, they're handling 3 to 6 major programs at any one time, and within each program, there's half a dozen or a dozen things going on. So, and they got a lot of stuff on their plate. They got to be able to organize the contract level and within the contract level. I said, okay, I understand that. And where do they have you got so many technical requirements. What is this for? Why does it sound like this person's an engineer? Oh, no, no, no. This person's not an engineer, but they certainly have to be able to articulate if somebody wants a different feature, different capability, put a different module together. This person certainly has to be able to understand what that's going to do to the whole system and how that's going to affect the whole costing of the system. So when you think about it, the job on the left is having. The job on the right is doing. Who would you rather hire? Someone who has all the skills. If you were a hiring manager, given this description right here, if you were the hiring manager, who would you rather hire? Or who do you think your hiring manager would rather hire? The person on the left who's got all the skills, or the person who can do the work on the right? So just put either one, you can define any way you want. Who would you rather hire if you were given the choice here? Skills or performance, left versus right. I got 3 people out of 220. Hey, JJ, you said 221 people. She guessed 221. Pretty good. You're pretty good at this, JJ. Okay, I only have 3 people. Who's going to make it? Then maybe I got more.
Oh, they're all coming in, Lou.
They're coming in now, yeah. So the idea is, so now here's the proof of concept, is if you're doing a job or any job, you have to take from the skills and convert it to what they do. Then you ask the hiring manager, and if you're a hiring manager, ask your recruiter, hey, I want to see people, a couple of people who have the skills, I want to see a couple of people who can do it. The truth is, if they can do the work on the right, if they can do the work, they have exactly the right level of skills. I suspect it's not in the same mix of what's written here, and certainly if I wrote an ad that largely encompasses the stuff and I'm going to attract a better group of people. When a candidate asks me, tell me a little bit about the job, and you only know the stuff on the left, all you're doing is box checking the stuff on the left, you're not going to be able to convince many people this is a worthy job. The job on the right is a good job. The one on the left, I don't know. It means nothing. So that's really the proof of concept. Some of you, just to give you a sense of the legal aspects of it, because we do have a look, oh, it's not in compliance, you can't do it. Well, the truth is it's 100% compliance, and I've actually, as part of my book, The Essential Guide for Hiring, as well as Hire With Your Head, I've obviously giving advice to the world on how to hire, at least in the U.S. I've got to have the legal components right. So I just asked, top lawyer in the country, David Goldstein at Littler Mendelsohn, who's the top labor law firm, are performance-based job descriptions effective? He said not only are they effective, they're more objective than traditional skills, knowledge, and abilities, and are open up the pool to more people. All you have to have is objective criteria. Leading a project with 3 to 4 salespeople selling to a Fortune 500 company is as objective as 10 years experience. As objective. So there's no law. So the truth is, and it also opens up the pool. So I asked David, I said, do you think that would have an impact on diversity? He said, absolutely. He said, in fact, when you think about skills-based criteria are very almost discriminatory because they preclude good people who can do the work. So using a performance-based job description, at least the advertising of it in some compelling fashion, opens up the pool to more diverse candidates and more military veterans, aside from the fact you'll get stronger candidates. So let's just kind of keep on going here. There's no law that says you have to post a boring job description. Now, it becomes a little tricky here because when I do the proof of concept, is if you're still using your boring job descriptions, you're probably not going to attract many people, so you do have to write a more compelling ad. There's no law that says you have to post a boring job description. There is no law that says you have to have a person apply immediately. At some point in time when you actually have a real job and the candidate agrees, okay, then you do have to keep tracking of it. That's what the law says. You got to track anybody who officially applies. But you can do a lot of stuff before they officially apply as long as you treat everybody the same. And then we don't need to get it, but I asked him about our interview, and he actually contended that our structured interview was far superior to the traditional behavioral interview because we're focused on real criteria that affects the job, but neither here nor there. The point that I want to make to anybody who would be concerned is that you're in full compliance doing this. Now let me get to, and feel free to ask questions, guys, because now I'm going to get into the actual proof of concept itself to just show you how it works. First off, you have to engage with hiring managers. And if you're a hiring manager, I'm going to contend they are similar to the folks on the right. They all think they're great. I don't care what level they are, and some of them are. I don't want to, but they all think they're great, so it doesn't matter. They all interview a different way. They all think that they're perfect with interviewing, and I haven't found many that are. I mean, I've been around longer than anybody on this call, I'm sure. And and yet I just talked to a CEO this morning, probably 35 years old, thought he was great. Yet at 60% hiring rate, he thought was great. Of course, if I was a recruiter and give a year guarantee, that means you got to do 40% of your searches over again. That to me is not great, but neither here nor there. So when I engage with hiring managers, I say, let's put the performance, the traditional skills-based job description into the parking lot. Let's put it aside. We'll bring it back in a moment. But first ask, tell me about the job. What do the best people need to do to be considered successful? Let's put them in the top quartile. You have engineers, what do your best engineers do? If you got people in a call center, what do your best people in a call center do? If you got great salespeople, what do the best salespeople do first? So just let's understand it. Let's pick names of people. Who are your best people? How are they different from the average people? So I just want to convert what they do differently into a performance objective. If somebody, I say, look, let's take a look at your job description. You have here, must have excellent interpersonal skills. What does that look like on the job? Oh, they've got to collaborate cross-functionally with engineering operations and the customer. Okay, I've got that. I've converted that. Why do they need 6 years of engineering? Oh, because they're designing a state-of-the-art artificial intelligence systems that can interpret noise from real data. Okay, but if I can find someone who can interpret noise from real data, looking at a data stream coming in, a metadata coming in, and they can actually do that, but they only had 2 to 3 years experience, but they could actually do the work, would you at least agree to see them? I actually said that this morning to this guy, the president of the company. He said, oh, yeah, of course. I was like, yeah, no brainer. I said, so why don't we focus, and this was 15 minutes over coffee. I just said down here, you're looking for a lot of AI and scientists. Why did you say you needed 7 to 10 years? I said, what did they do? And he told me what they did, pretty much look at metadata and be able to separate, logically separate the noise from real information. I said, well, if I can find someone who can do that in 2 to 3 years, would you want to see him? He said, absolutely. Do you have anybody? I said, it was just a rhetorical question. The point was I was trying to convince the CEO that having of skills doesn't predict performance. If they can do the work, higher probability. And he agreed. He said, I'm happy to see people. So he said that was really the issue. He was happy to meet the people. I'm not telling them to hire the people, just meet them. And that's the proof of concept, is we're going to do this for the whole job. Then I also say, but why, and I was looking at this guy's website, and we're going to go in to help this company redesign its whole hiring process. I said, I'm looking at your website and your jobs, and I can hear your enthusiasm for your company. It's very, very cool what you're doing, but the jobs sound kind of boring. There's nothing there. It's exciting. Why would a top person, and I think there's really 3 things that a person takes in a job. Number 1, is the job intrinsically motivating to me, the person? Is the company and the product doing something that's interesting, that's bigger than the job itself? And you, the leadership team, and the people who can work with it, important. So you have the team, you got the company, you got the job. You got to capture all of that in your advertising. So we actually started talking about that. So kind of part of it. But you always say, why would a top person want this job? That's the employee value proposition. Why would they want this job? You got to capture that in your advertising. Okay, so here's the idea that I want to do with the proof. Prove that someone who can meet the performance profile is better than people who just meet the skills. Now, it might be on 1 or 2, they might not find it, but if you do it dozens of times, that's going to happen. I've been doing it for 30 years, and it always happens. But nonetheless, I want to collect some data over the point of time and also demonstrate to recruiters and to hiring managers, hey, let's prove it with analytics. This is just, and I presented this to a marketing group. They said, of course, we do this all the time. We put advertising A versus advertising B, and we see which one works. We don't even argue about it. We don't say, hey, this is better than that. We just say, let's try them both. Do a A versus B test. That's what we're doing, is an A versus B test. So this is where we're going here. If you pull it off and you prove it, your hiring managers will turn to pussycats. Well, sometimes they will anyway. Okay, any questions coming up, JJ, there that you see? I want to make sure I answer a few because I'm going to now go into the proof of concept.
Yeah,
okay, feel free to ask questions. Okay, so I don't see any.
Yeah, we do have. Yeah, we do have quite a few actually. So they're all mixed in. So is there a baseline of skills? For example, if somebody is programming in SAP, wouldn't they need that skill to do the job? Is there a baseline of skills? And if so, how do you incorporate that into a performance profile?
Well, I think, of course, I need a baseline of skills, but is it X years, or is it 3 to 15 years, or is it half of 6 months? So I would basically say, use your Ruby on Rails to develop a new state-of-the-art data extraction tool that does such and such. So I'd combine it with there. Now, rather than say must have 3 to 5 years of Ruby skills. So I would combine it together. Use your CPA to prepare a international reporting system that monitors in real time international currency valuations. So rather than saying must have international currency data and a CPA and this, I just say, okay, combine it with what they need to do with it. So pretty easy to pull that off. Let me take one more, then I'll come back to many more of them too, because let me see the proof. Let me take one more real-time question, JJ, and then let me show the proof, and then we'll come back to any questions you guys have.
Yeah, do you find that applicants who are used to searching for jobs on skills, do you find that they respond well to a job that is performance-based?
The answer is, of course. There's another candidate I'm trying to get to who was a candidate for us. This was like 10 years ago, and he happened to be up in San Francisco. I'm trying to have lunch with him tomorrow. He responded to an ad. This was 10 or 10 years when I first met this guy. Yum Brands, down in Louisville, Kentucky, Taco Bell, Pizza Hut in Kentucky, Colonel Sanders, was looking for a director of financial planning. They had run an ad, and it was in one of the job boards at the time, because that was the big thing. That was very traditional, boring, must-have 70 years corporate experience, MBA from a top school, all of this. We put an ad right next to it that's talked about, I don't remember exactly the title of the ad, but it was financial planning guru to handle out-of-the-box thinking and creative planning skill. Whatever it was a similar job. The guy saw the Yum Brands job. The guy who actually got the job, we got a full fee for it, saw our ad. He was right next to it. He said, I didn't know that was Yum Brands. I would have applied to Yum Brands. The boring job that I didn't want to do, a corporate job. The way you explained it was so compelling. So let me just ask the obvious question. Do you guys, whether it's a job or a product, do you get excited about the benefits of the product or the technology underneath the product or the feature of the product? Most people, it's advertising, guys. This is not rocket science. You appeal to someone's intrinsic motivator. In fact, I might show you an ad here just to get you a couple if I can pull one up here. But the answer is obviously yes. Compelling advertising far exceeds boring advertising. And part of the proof would be to do that, but I can't incorporate. We do actually do that in our training. We have recruiter boot camp training where you go through and you actually compare every aspect of it. I'm trying to narrow it down to this job. But here's the proof, the way that it would want to work. Ask your hiring manager to compare, or hiring manager ask your recruiters to put a slate of candidates, 2 that meet all the performance objectives and a few that meet all the skills objectives. And you have to prepare a performance-based job description. We can help a few of you. We can't help, obviously, all of you because that's our business, but we can certainly try it out with a few of you guys. And I'll show you what our offer would be. Prepare a performance-based job description, 1 or 2 major objectives, and 2 to 3 subtasks, similar to what we did for that field systems engineer. Post a creative ad versus a traditional ad. I will put in the email, Jay, just remind me, I'll put some links to some creative ads just to give you some ideas. We obviously can't write those for you, but the program I'm doing with this client this morning, the CEO, I said, let's just rewrite your postings. You might not have to do anything else. That'll just attract more people. Then we asked the hiring manager and you, the team, hey, just interview the candidates, the best candidates from each group, the skills group and the performance group. And you'll discover that the performance group will also attract a lot more passive candidates because they were looking for a real job. So there's a lot of reasons why more creative advertising will attract more stronger people. Go, oh, that's the work I want. That's what people want. They want a better job. So interview the 2 candidates. We're going to have an online survey to say, okay, what were the results of it? That's really the proof of concept. If you'd like to partake, we're not that big a company. We can handle this for a few of you guys. Obviously, we can't handle it for 218. That's just impossible. But 3 to 5, half a dozen people. If you can get a recruiter and a hiring manager on the phone, it's a legitimate job. We'll walk through half hour, so we'll walk through preparing the job description with the recruiter and the hiring manager, and we'll give you some ideas on how to write the ad. So that's what we'll do. We'll be able to do that. JJ will have that in the email that goes out to everybody, info@adlerconcept. So that's the idea that we have in going forward. So let me do this. Let me open it for questions. Let me just suggest that this is what we do to get certified in performance-based hiring. You have to do this. This is not a game for us. I mean, it's interesting, but we offer a program called Performance-Based Hiring. Under Recruiter Bootcamp, we treat it online. We go on site for companies, but we do it online where you will get certified. You'll take a job. You'll do it the traditional way. You'll do it the performance-based way, and you'll compare the results, and by doing it, you'll get certified. We also have an online program for hiring managers. The full program covers sourcing, recruiting, interviewing, and closing. The hiring managers is taking the job and the interviewing piece. We have that. We also have a sneak peek, which you might want to bring some hiring managers into. I guess the next one is February 11th, right, JJ? That's before I'm going on vacation, right? And we also allow talent leaders to audit Module 1 of Bootcamp. So we offer opportunities for everybody to partake in this in addition to the proof of concept, which we can do, give you some hands-on advice there. But I think if you buy the book and you read some of the stuff I put on LinkedIn or Inc. magazine, you get a sense of how to kind of do at least the bulk of it on your own. If you need help, we can probably help you somehow. So Jake, let me open it up now to questions. You got the issue of what the proof of concept is. Take the survey. You get information in email going back on how to pull that off. So let me open it up for any questions you've got. One final word or two before we head off here. A couple minutes for questions.
We have a lot of people on the call who apparently have very hard-headed hiring managers, and they would like more information about how to get through to those hiring managers or how to get them out of the rut of skills and experience to at least be open to this idea of performance-based descriptions. Well,
the thing is, like I would have said, this CEO, that I met this morning, he was not of that ilk. He was probably in the third that would do it, because it didn't take him long, although all his job description's online. And it's a company about 70 people, growing fast. He's got some money. You know, I'm up in Silicon Valley, so everybody's here at some level of venture capital. He's got some money, but it's his first round, still at $6 million. He's got 60 people, so he's got a lot. And his job description is all skills. When I just explained it to him, and I just said, hey, this is what we could do from an advertising standpoint and from a he said, that makes perfect sense. I mean, it was easy for him to do it. So generally speaking, if you get a manager who's reasonably with it, it's not a hard case to make. They just haven't been exposed to it. For the proof of concept, my suggestion would be to find someone like that. Don't take a hard-nosed person who isn't going to do it. You need to be skilled to do it, meaning you have to practice this a couple of times. On the other hand, if I'm in a bigger company, and this is the way we've done it, we implement this companies around the world, we tell recruiters at the companies is start with someone who's a reasonably good manager who can attract good people and who's open-minded enough to do it. When you do that 2 or 3 times, then you can go to the next group of managers who are a little bit more reluctant, have their arms closed, and aren't going to do it. But then you say, hey, look, what happened over here with Bill, Mary, and Karen is they just didn't look at the people they hired. Oh, they did it that way? Oh, maybe I should try it. And then you don't say hire the people. You say compare. Would you just compare these people who have the skills versus compare the people this way? Don't even, you make the judgment. I will find you people with the skills, but let me also find you a few people who might meet the performance criteria. So that's really the whole proof of concept, is to actually get through to those people. You're making an offer that's not a hard offer. Most managers, I haven't found, even the toughest nosed managers, don't, I say, okay, if you do it that way, hey, it's going to be extra, my work, it's going to be extra work, I'll show it to you, you do whatever you want. You hire the 2, but you see 2 people from me of each type. That seems to be a pretty easy. If they're not even willing to do that, you're fighting an uphill battle. You're just never going to win. So I wouldn't even try the proof of concept with it, because you're not going to win. luckily, as a third-party recruiter, I do not take those assignments. I know in a corporate recruiter you have to do it. I just won't fight the battle there because it's just not worth it. It's just a numbers game, and they're going to make a decision based on desperation. Any other questions, JJ?
Yeah, a couple more. So a lot of folks on this call are wondering how to mine or differentiate the performance criteria from the skills and experience that you see on a resume, because a lot of folks have ATS systems they have to work through.
I got it. Yeah, in our training, we actually talk about the searching part. Certainly you have to do, whether you write the ad, however you do it. But let's assume you're just doing a Boolean string. Obviously you have to do the basics of Boolean, and I know Glenn and I know Shelley very well. What I find interesting is that you don't have to be great at Boolean. What you have to understand is, what does a top achiever put on his or her resume that would differentiate the person? One term is just the word award. A top achiever has gotten awards. They've been promoted. In sales, I'm looking for terms like quota, 100% rookie, awards that person would get. If I'm looking for top engineers, I know that top engineers are in Tau Beta Pi or Pi Tau Sigma or Eta Kappa Nu. So I'm looking for what recognition the top people in that group would get, and I put that in my Boolean search, and that just pulls them to the top of the list. I mean, that's the simple answer to a long issue, but you just look for stuff, and you find people who are high achievers, and you find out what they do differently, and all of a sudden you find, and I put fewer skill terms in and more recognition terms, and the mix changes pretty profoundly when you do that. Let's take one more question, JJ, then we've got, I said 37 minutes, we're up to 39, so let's take one more question.
Yeah.
And we'll...
So do you think that this concept is applicable to both large businesses who have high volume hiring as well as the smaller boutique businesses who can focus a lot more time on smaller rec numbers?
I don't think it's not volume related. It's we've helped the YMCA hire 100,000 camp counselors this way in one summer. We've helped Verizon and hire hundreds, if not, I guess hundreds of people for call centers. We've helped companies hire onesie, twosie engineers. So it's not necessarily, that's a project issue. That's a process. The basic underlying concepts of, if you want to hire good people, you have to have good jobs. It doesn't matter if it's one job or 100 people, you still have to be a good job. Number two, you have to have advertising that reaches that person, whether it's one person or a dozen or 1,000. You still want advertising that reaches the people and attracts the best people. We want to attract the best people in, not necessarily weed the weak people out. So I don't think it's a volume issue. And I haven't seen that. We've used it for, as I said, the youngest, I guess, group would have been YMCA camp counselors who were 17 and 8, 16 and 17. We've used it for entry level in college, graduates, college entry level, let's call it, graduate programs at universities. We've used it for senior staff. We've used it for board of directors. So it works on every single position. Human nature hasn't changed. The best people do things differently. They look for jobs differently, and they're not looking for lateral transfers. So now you got to say, okay, how do I set that up? So that's actually the proof of concept. You will get an email from us in the next 24 hours that defines this proof of concept. If you want to learn more about the concept itself and do it on your own, you certainly get a copy of Hire With Your Head. It's or first the Essential Guide for Hiring and Getting Hired. It's available for less than $10, so it's not going to break your budget, but it will certainly profoundly change the way you hire. We offer a lot of stuff online, our boot camp, our hiring manager course. We have a sneak peek that's no cost. Talent leaders are welcome to Audit Module 1, where we get into the depths of this whole process in more depth. So thank you very much, guys. Hopefully this was helpful. We look forward to have you part of the proof of concept. More importantly, what's going to happen is you'll discover a unique way to hire great people every time. Thanks very much, everybody.
Great. Thank you so much, Lou. And as Lou mentioned, there will be an email in your inbox within the next 24 hours that will have information that Lou talked about today, as well as a link to complete that survey and listen to the recording and get the handout. So we are looking forward to seeing you at future ADVA Group webinars. Have a great afternoon, everyone. Bye-bye.